welcome to Gently Read, the podcast where we, as an I, your host, Aurora Fenzl, talk about anything and everything surrounding the romance genre, including our benefactress, Jane Austen, or more contemporary titles like Bridgerton, or projects that are coming up in the Jane Austen Society of North America, or anything that touches on like cosplaying or costuming, or projects that inspire people that stem from this genre. So again, I hope you stay with us, and thank you for listening. Welcome to Gently Read. This episode will talk about sexual themes, generational trauma, and abuse using pornography. Listener discretion is advised. Land acknowledgements. We are recording in Dakota Territory, also known as the Seven Council Fires, and also known as the Sioux Nation. All right, guys. So I love this book by Nikki Payne. I mean, listen to it. I love it. It's such a beautiful, beautiful book. And I fell in love with my experience reading her first book, Pride and Protest, which is a Pride and Prejudice retelling. It's just a wild ride, but it stays so true to Pride and Prejudice, which is my first love of Jane Austen's novels, because, you know, it was the first one that I read in probably high school, so it is very near and dear to my heart. But as I grow older, I find that I am connecting more with, I'm connecting more with the older characters of Austen's, which is how it should be. Like, I'm connecting with more with Sense and Sensibility, and more with Persuasion, now that, I'm, quote, getting up in years and I am on the shelf, potentially, as a wallflower. That remains to be seen. But this book, Nikki Payne, the writing is so real and contemporary. And so talking about the culture within the book, and there are meme abbreviations that would need defining if you do not consume digital and social media at the levels of millennials and Gen Z. So much like Jane Austen, including correspondence of letters or media or notes in her books, Payne includes text messages, emails, and written notes. So also a word of caution. Again, you could probably guess from this title, Sex, Lies, and Sensibility, there is sex in this book. I would say that there is a, quote, very spicy masturbation scene, and there is a consummating more of an act of bonding sex scene towards the end of the book. But if you are not into this kind of content, you can completely skip these scenes, and it does not detract from reading or experiencing the rest of the book. So the rest of the book is, again, wow. And honestly, I don't have enough time in the rest of the semester to talk about all the reasons why this book is fantastic. I can only pick a few because my time is running out in this podcast studio rental. So let's get after it. So let's talk about the spin-off quality and the comparison, because the first thing anyone is going to do when they pick up a book like this is, how does it compare to the original media? How does it compare? How could it ever compare to Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility? And I really take heart from these authors who, go forth and, try and go forth and create a brand new story from, this existing text, but also they're able to make this new retelling their own. And I feel that Nikki Payne has really done that. And this is why I keep coming back to her work and to her books, because she's able to make it her own, but also, pay homage to, this great author in writing of Jane Austen's, for which all the reasons that we fell in love with her. So the spin-off quality and the comparisons, just to get it out of the way, because I know you're all dying for it. So no spin-off will be perfect or elicit the same feelings and perform the same task that the original work did. Again, however, the spirit can be captured, and Nikki Payne has truly done this in a masterful way. And I think one of the best ways to experience this is to talk about her characters. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on plot, because the plot does follow Sense and Sensibility very well. And I feel that to, truly experience the book and kind of like the spice of this is really the characters and how they, are similar to the original characters in Austen's work, but also how Payne has really made them her own. So let's get after it. All right, let's get right into what everyone is champing at the bit to hear. So, the spin-off quality and the comparisons. I'm just going to get it out of the way now. We're all human. We want to know how this book differentiates itself from the original text of Jane Austen. So let's just get after it. And I figured the best way to get to know this book without completely spoiling the entire thing, granted it is a spinoff, so but not to, reveal all the like juicy details that will really, is what makes this book what it is. I figured that I would share a character list of these points, and how they differentiate themselves and how they're also similar to the characters of, Austen's original text that she wrote for Sense and Sensibility. So, first off, no spinoff will be perfect or elicit the same feelings and perform the same task that the original work did. However, the spirit can still be captured, and Nikki Payne really does that. So, starting off this hot list of characters from Sex, Lies, and Sensibility. Nora Dash, the main event. Love her so much. She's an African American young woman. She is taking the place of Eleanor Dashwood in this story, and this girl, I see so much of myself in her. She is in control. She's not expressive of her emotions with other people. She was a college track star, and she made the mistake of, making a sex tape with her now ex-boyfriend. And a lot of her, traumas and, personal things that she's working throughout this book, because the sex tape was leaked. He posted it online, and it went viral as a meme for like her expression of like just being like completely like, what is this guy doing? So no, like Nora, whenever she walks into a room, she has like this fear that someone is going to recognize her for this, this sex tape that was made into a meme that went viral, and it lives in fear that, someone is going to recognize her because of that, and they're not going to see her for, who she really is, and, her many other like genius merits that, you really get to know her throughout the book. Because of this situation with the virality of this meme, she didn't finish college. So unfortunately, she, left, and she, she had to pick up this lower wage working at a drugstore for less money than she would have made if she had completed her degree. So that's like where she starts off in the book, and she has to work through a lot of these feelings and these issues. And there's quite a few scenes because she's a track athlete. There's she bonds with the male lead Bear over running, and that also takes a large part of this book. So if you are a runner, I wouldn't know, but if you do run, I think you will find parts of yourself in this book as well. Moving on, Mary Ann Dash, or I should say, taking the place of Mary Ann Dashwood, is Yan Dash. The shortening of Marianne. So Yan Dash, she is the emotional foil to Nora. Also, did I clarify that these sisters, Nikki Payne, she writes very well. Nikki Payne is a masterclass in writing these characters in a very sensitive and anthropological way, but also, writing this great piece of fiction. So Nikki Payne, her main characters, her heroines, typically in the last two books that I've read, again, Pride and Protest and Sex, Lies, and Sensibility, Nikki Payne is African American. So she, writes these heroines who, embody things that she grew up with, which is also very similar to what Jane Austen, how she wrote what she knew and what she experienced, that her heroines experienced. So again, both Nora and Yan Dash are African American women, and Marianne Yan Dash is the emotional foil to Nora. She is more spiritual, and she does tarot card readings, and she loves Shakespeare just like our old girl Marianne, and she uses those quotes as her love language, and she, she's very intuitive about people, but I feel like that's also one of her downfalls, is that she feels like she can just connect with someone and know who they are. But I think that bites her in the ass quite a bit in this book, and she does a lot of growing and learning that she can't just float through life. Because, when you do that, you're going to be vulnerable to a lot of things. And in this book, it's beautiful to watch her grow. And also another part of her, character profile is that she does have chronic sickle cell anemia, which I've read, books about it, and it's a horrible, chronic genetic disease, condition to, battle with. And I feel that this book also does a very good job of talking about the realities of that. Because, I was on social media the other day, and I heard some book reader or writer or whoever talk about, the quote, female fainting spell. No. Women have real medical concerns. There are reasons why we are falling over. There are reasons why we, we're tired, or we, have these very real medical conditions. And I feel that instead of just being, quote, overwrought, this book really gives through Yan Dash, it shows that, women can be indisposed, but it's for a truly real medical condition. And I think that small detail of part of Yan Dash helps to highlight and gives voice to a lot of women who deal with this. So Mrs. Dash, but we learn that her real name is not Mrs. Dash, because she was not married to the Dash sisters' father. So, because she was the other woman, the mother was the mistress in this situation, and I'm just like, okay, we are just getting salacious right off the get-go. So yeah, their mother, Mrs. Dash, does not take a huge, like part of like dialogue. She only like helps in the exposition part of the novel. So I don't necessarily have like a larger profile for her as compared to Mrs. Dashwood from Sense and Sensibility. So I'm not going to take too much time on her. But again, there's this mother who is a little bit more like Marianne in a way, where she's, a lover, and she like loved their father, and she wanted to raise her girls and all of this, but still she did not take precautionary actions to protect her children upon the death of their father. And we are going to get into him. So again, Mr. Dash, African American, owner of a spice company, which is like a barbecue rub. But so yeah, he made millions of dollars. This company that's still going, and the beginning of the book opens with his death. This guy, Mr. Dash, his death is what kicks off this whole shit show, this whole novel. And so because he dies, there's the will that is read, and he has honestly left nothing, like just straight up monetarily, for his illegitimate family of, our main characters of Dashes. And like the house that they live in is not owned by their mother. It is owned by Mr. Dash. And upon, his death, it reverts back to his actual family. And we're going to get into this. But also just another thing. So before we talk about more of the family, there is no person who is taking the place of Margaret Dashwood. And I was just a little sad about this, because I kind of love the character of, just having this younger, like, child in Sense and Sensibility. But unfortunately, we do not have the presence of a child. And I can understand that, because, Nikki Payne wants to, go a little bit more into the traditional, romance territory of being, very spicy. And it's kind of hard to do that when there's a kid underfoot. So I can completely understand why she cut this character from the book, but I'm just a little sad about it, because I do love Margaret Dashwood, because I do love kids. But unfortunately, we are not graced with Margaret Spunk in Sex, Lies, and Sensibility. Now, also, there is no older brother. There's no Mr. Dashwood in this book. And I was actually kind of happy about that, because the new Mr. Dashwood, the younger one who takes over for the father, he's kind of spineless in Sense and Sensibility, and it was really interesting to see how, these characteristics of, or not necessarily the characteristics, but seeing a woman really take, full control of the situation, as opposed to Fanny Dashwood, who has to, convince her husband to do something. So I'm just going to get right into Felicia Dash. Felicia Dash is the legitimate daughter of Mr. Dash, and she, takes on the role of what would be both Mr. Dashwood as the inheritor in this situation, but also she takes on the role of, Fanny Dashwood, who just has it out for these Dashwood sisters, these Dashes. And oh gosh, just seeing this kind of like slimy girl work, it's like, okay. So she takes the role of inheriting sibling, and again, she doesn't need a man. So she takes all of the, the shock and awe of, it's like, oh, I'm inheriting everything right now. You girls have X amount of months to get Barton Cove in up and running and profitable, or you lose everything. And I will explain that situation later. But moving on, our man of the hour, Ennis Bear Freeman. So all of the other previous characters that I have shared have been part of the Dash family, and they are African American. But Ennis Bear Freeman is Abenaki. So Abenaki is one of the tribal groups over in northern Maine. So, and that's where the Barton Cove, or necessarily where Barton Park or Barton Cottage from Sensibility would be. So, like, out in the country, Bear is Native American, and he takes the place of Mr. Edward Ferris. So Bear was a track runner in college and now coaches the local high school team, and that's how he recognizes Nora for her genius running athleticism. And when he first approaches her, and he's kind of like, I know you. Like, I know who you are. And Nora's getting all verklempt, like, oh my gosh, he knows about this sex tape. He's seen the meme. But no, he recognizes her for her, talents and what she's truly loves and what she's good at. And he sees her. And I find that incredibly beautiful. And he tries to keep so many things running in his life. This guy, Bear, he is hustling. He is running the business that he inherited from his grandmother, and he is also a council member, and he is just on multiple fronts trying to keep his life standing and running and functioning. Yeah, he is also a runner and an athlete. And but all this stuff in his life is slowly crushing him, and including his secret, reputation of how our character Lou, I'll get to her, how Lou got, attacked, and how she was alone, and how he's lying to his community by omission from the situation. And like his reputation is kind of a lie. It's built on, sand, and he's constantly, trying to keep it under wraps and trying to, and also on top of all this, have a relationship with Nora, and he's trying to find happiness, but all of these other things, his family and community, gets in the way. And I really feel for this guy, because he, is fielding, he's taking responsibility for his reputation from the front of his community, from, in front of Nora and, her family and friends, and he's also, trying to be paid off by this, also another topic I will get after, but he's trying to be paid off because he sits on the council. They're trying to build a dam on the river that would interrupt the salmon migration. And part of Abenaki culture is that the salmon are incredibly important, not only culturally, but just in, a sense of food availability, and where these people get their strength from. So yeah, Bear is trying to protect all of these things, and trying to keep all of this running, but he just in the end he has to make decisions, and he has to make choices about how he resolves all of these things that he's just been juggling. So again, Bear Abenaki, he is Native American. And moving on to his friend Brandon, who is actually African American. And Brandon, love him. Out of all Austen's heroes, I love Colonel Brandon. He's just, and as you know, I grow up as well. I'm almost 30. I can truly appreciate a man such as Colonel Brandon, who, who's steady and has resources, and he's smart, and he, just is very stoic and will take care of things, and that's you know, as a woman, I really find that attractive now, and I really love this book, how Yan, how our Marianne character in this book really grows to love him. So in this book, Brandon, African American guy, he's an accountant. He likes managing money, like he loves it, and this is kind of like what you know, gives him joy in life, and I'm happy for him because numbers do not do that for me. So in this newer version, he is closer in age to Yan, and he's Bear's really good friend, and he does a good job of calling Bear out on his bullshit, which I truly appreciate, and the dynamic that he as a really good friend for Bear, I just love how he does that, and how he, you know, takes care of people with allowing them to grow. Now, onto the foil. If you are familiar with characters from Sense and Sensibility, we this jackass, John of the Willoughby Resort. We are getting to our first white guy. So John, who runs the Willoughby Resort, he takes the place of Mr. John Willoughby. So this sweet mother heifer, I'm just gonna rant for a little bit. Mr. John Willoughby, he and Ms. Gray in the original text deserve each other in their unhappy marriage that I'm sure is going to ensue. He deserves to be miserable. And again, same conclusion from this book. He deserves to be miserable for what he does in behind the scenes. And I think I'm going to make the decision not to reveal how he worked with a certain relative of the Dashes to, you know, potentially, you know, work against them throughout the entire book and distract Yan and make sure that they don't get their, you know, inheritance that should have just been given to them, but they have to work for. But anyway, just John, he is just not a good dude. He's just out for himself, out to, you know, make money for himself. And he, you know, preys upon, you know, Yan and her, you know, like just cute little, no, I shouldn't say cute, but just, you know, naivety and like kind of wafy, like, oh, you know, this characteristics of, you know, of youth and innocence, and he really preys upon that, and he tries to, you know, work against them and make them fail, and I hate him for this. He hasn't. You can see that he just does not love Yan and the fact that he does not work for them. His actions do not, you know, forward, you know, the cause of these women. What he does is to detract from what they're working on, and hate him. So yeah, and all the bad things that happen to him, I truly believe he deserves. So now moving on to Lou, the money-grubbing fiance of Bear, the secret fiance. Well, no, to Nora, the secret fiance. I will say, just like when I experienced the character of Lucy Steele, who takes the place of Lou in Sense and Sensibility. Oh God, they're so annoying. Like here's the deal. The some preparation and questions was, it's like, is Lucy Steele, is Lou, you know, evil? Is she an evil character? No. I will never say, you know, in life there are no truly evil people. Well, there are exceptions, but overall, like, you're not evil, you're just annoying. You just rub me the wrong way. And Lou does that. Like, I can see her motivations and what she is trying to do, but no. So again, she is the, quote, fiance of Bear, and she's just annoying because she had this situation where she is trying to become a nurse, and she was in a relationship with Bear at the time, and Bear took responsibility for her because Bear, like always, wants to take care of everything, but he just was not taking care of her at the time. Like, he chose to walk away, and something tragic happened to her, and she's still, just dealing with the physical, like, health repercussions of that, like, and trying to get through her nursing degree. And Bear is just trying to, support her, but it's like Bear has no bandwidth to help her. And unfortunately, this girl Lou is just like sucking everything from Bear. And also, Lou is also from the Abenaki community, so that's how he knows her. Now, Basil Freeman. Basil Freeman is taking the place, he's Abenaki, and he takes the place of relation to Bear. So he's not Bear's brother, he is his cousin. And he's very successful now. He lives in Silicon Valley with a successful business, again, very rich. But he's still jealous of Bear because Bear has this closeness to the community, and he receives like this social adulation that Basil never really got, because Basil was a little bit socially awkward, but yeah, he's jealous. And in the end, Basil ends up with, again, because spoilers, Sense and Sensibility, he ends up with, the girl in the end. He ends up with Lou. So another just a character who is a player, and there are plenty of other characters. I list them all, but I just also want to share who Elder Elizabeth Wilkes is. She is also from the Abenaki community, and this older woman. The quote that I find to embody her is that she chose who she would show her body to. And again, one of the main themes is dealing with the media being used against women in these cases of in these cases of like blackmail and pornography, and the abuse of this media against women and against people. And so essentially, Elder Wilkes back in her youth, we learn that she was in a similar situation to Nora, where her reputation was on the line due to how she was living as a young woman. And she ended up marrying this other guy, but she was a lover to Bear's father. But besides the point, Elder Wilkes becomes kind of like this inspiration for Nora to, really to help this situation that I will get more into about this, media sense. So this section, I'm going to be talking about identity and just how, these different cultures, come together and how they interact with each other, and some of the more nuanced points that some people might not be aware of, or just, don't have a specialty in. And I mean, I did have to do some research and do a lot of listening on, different sides to kind of understand the context of where, both where all of these characters are coming from and where Nikki Payne is coming from. So again, you have to kind of put on your little anthropological hat when you're reading this. And yeah, it's just important to, keep that in mind as you're going through this book. So again, I love this book because there is a great resource, at least in my copy anyway, of Sex, Lies, and Sensibility. There is a reader's guide in the back of the book that I pulled a couple questions from. So if you want to, read through either these questions or see any other questions, that's where you can find them. So the section of the question starts with, let's discuss how the characters' political, racial, and socioeconomic identities impact their choices in the novel. And going on to, this first question that talks about, the first exposition of when Bear and Nora and Moxie, Bear's cousin, and and Yan, first met, Bear accused Nora of Columbusing Barton Cove. Columbusing. Why was she particularly offended by that? So why was Nora, why did she feel, so off-put and offended by being called you're Columbusing this place? So Nora, again, to understand where she's coming from, she's kind of up some desperate straits, and she is coming onto this new property that, was kind of willed to her by her father, and in these crazy circumstances, and she has to, lay claim to it. And I think, I know where coming from Bear's perspective, he's been using this kind of, not like squatting, I would say, but, he's this, it's the unofficial, kind of ghosty headquarters of, where he takes these tours where, he lights a fire and he shares stories and stuff like that. And actually in the scene, Bear is, wearing some form of regalia when he meets Nora, and Nora is just like, what is this guy wearing? Like, is he crazy? But no. So Nora on her part, she, has this desperation of, she, needs to come to this place to make a new life for herself, but there's the problem. Someone is already there. And you see this time and time again in, rereading histories of Native populations getting displaced. It's not the big evil government that is like making all these decisions. It's in a sense across the board of, people who are getting pushed off their land and people who are trying to, move to a new land because they have no other choice. They have no other place to go. And that, just in studying this, I have a lot of empathy and, just grief about the whole situation of vulnerability and people who, all have trauma from all sides and trying to work through this. But specifically, Nora is coming from a place of, my community of African American people has been, on the receiving end of a lot of, trauma. And we don't diminish that, but I don't think she has ever had the experience of coming in and being, the entitled, rich person who has all these resources and all these opportunities. And she's just coming in here and, taking over. And I don't think she's ever experienced that before. So the next question is, in the same situation of, like first contact of all these characters, of Yan is eager to share her alleged Native ancestry with Bear and his cousin. So the question is, why was Moxie so turned off by Yan's attempt at connection? Why was Moxie so turned off by Yan's attempts at connection? Yan, she's trying to, make a connection and be, kind and, in this very, very awkward social situation. And she's trying to have, gain some authority and, generate like this ethos, in the situation to, be able to, make a connection and keep communicating. But it goes awry because she pulls out, my Cherokee ancestors. And there's this situation where people try and fabricate indigeneity to make connection with people who are actually Indigenous, and unfortunately people who are, in those communities. It's very tiring to have to, figure out if, you're legit. And unfortunately, Yan steps into this situation and, makes that mistake. And just it's really unfortunate. Like, I can see where both sides are coming from, and but when in doubt, at least in my experience, don't bring it in. Don't bring, your, don't bring it in unless you are actually, from those communities. And in my case, to, reference my intro to the episode, I just wanted to, I hopefully I'm not making the same mistake that Yan is, but it's in an effort to make a connection, to share that, we're trying to understand, and we're trying to, get back and understand who we are. But overall, from Moxie's point of view, yeah, just Yan made the mistake, and Moxie is just, turned off because it's not a good situation. Because again, it's like the previous question is Bear was accusing Nora of Columbusing. You could also equally say that Yan is Columbusing in this way, and I think it's just as equally damaging as if you just roll in and say, I'm taking over and this is how it's going to be. I think it's as equally damaging to the communities that you're trying to interact with if you just come in and say, oh, I have this X and X connection, when in reality you don't, unfortunately. So it's to be, you in this situation, you need to be, Yan should have just been, hey, this is who I am. It's really nice to meet you. That whole thing, like, meet them as people, not as a people group. And I think everyone's, identities were on their sleeve at this point in the book, and they weren't talking with each other as individuals. They were talking to each other coming from the standpoint of, this is my race, this is my ideology, this is where I'm coming from, and I need to be here now. I don't think there was a good connection made, and again, that's where a lot of that awkward emotions come from in this situation. So Nora and Bear sit down with each other and have a, quote, stupid questions session. And so here's the question: why did that lead to a turning point in their relationship? I think that in this book you see the turning point because they're vulnerable enough with each other that they're going to take off their armor, and they're going to be very honest with each other and allow each other the space to learn without the shame of not knowing what they're asking the question of, because learning is very painful. And when you come to the point of the process of learning, it's painful because you have to replace something that already existed in your brain. You have to replace an assumption that you had in your brain with the truth, and that's a painful process to go through. So it's very important, and it's a turning point in the relationship because they are welcoming each other into the reality, and welcoming each other into this painful situation to allow for learning, because learning is a great thing, but it's also it's also hard. So in Bear's situation, the Abenaki, they fish. Most of their diet would come from, the river. And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't, just speaking from, what I'm assuming. I did listen to a lecture by Anthony Tony Sutton, who's actually from this part of the world, and he's part of that First Nations community. And he talked about in a lecture about the fish passage, fish that are supporting the sustenance rights. There is a precedent in the state of Maine that the land was given up so that there was no right for these, people to take and harvest the food out of season. Rules made by the government. And the importance of these sites of sustenance, they allow for traveling lightly on the land. And that is where, in the very early days, and actually still now to this day, that's where these people get their strength, is their connection to, this waterway, this resource. It's not only a resource for food, it's transportation, it's a place to gather, it's a place to, connect and find family, and it's life. This source is, where this community finds its power. And unfortunately, the European settlers came in and took it from them. They're building forts and they're building dams and they're, colonizing these spaces and pushing these people out away from the rivers. And that's why in this book, Bear is just he will not take the money. He will not take the payoff to, vote in favor of allowing this company to build a dam. Because if you don't know, dams, they, change the waterway, and the fish aren't able to migrate properly back to where their ancestral spawning grounds are. And in interfering with that, breeding migration of, these fish, you're going to see a dip in your natural resources. And it's just not a good situation. And from the loss of the fish, you lose the backbone of, these cultural practices, and you lose out on the cultural importance of where these people, again, find their power. And that's essentially what was happening, is Bear didn't want his community to lose their power. And I completely respect that in his need to be a leader and protect his people. And just another last point that I wanted to take from Anthony Tony Sutton. So leaders and healing in this situation need to come from the Indigenous community, of who have had the least voice in the development of the existing systems. So to make it better, you need to have people like our fictional Bear here, taking up the reins and making these decisions now, to really make sure that we have, the best ethical and effective way to heal not only the environment, but to also, heal these communities who have been impacted for so many hundreds of years sometimes. Shifting gears, our next segment, I'm just going to say it right now. Our digital society sucks. Our digital society sucks. So Nora deals with a huge buildup of anxiety and trauma from having dealt with her sex tape that she made with her ex-boyfriend, with that going public and viral on the internet. In my opinion, it was this sex tape that gave Nora, throughout this book, one of the biggest hurdles, no pun intended, from her track star history to confront and turn into her biggest individual strength. So I wanted to talk about this Nora's, journey dealing with this, sex tape and, being turned into a meme and et cetera, et cetera. I wanted to talk about this because overall, when people look at the romance genre, they're like, oh, nothing important is talked about in these books. It's just like, oh, girl falling in love with a boy. It's a love story. It's, yada, yada, all that. But the framework of this relationship allows for us to talk about these very heavy topics in an organic way. And this is one of those cases where we are going to be talking about, Nora really being abused, emotionally, sexually, in this case. So again, that's what we're going to be talking about in this section. So So there was this character, her name was Elder Wilkes. Nora was able to connect with her because she has that connection of shared experiences across time and media type and cultural context. So Elder Wilkes is, an Indigenous woman living, in the reservation community. That's how Nora meets her through Bear. So she has this connection with her, and she found it, and she was able to, see the end of the solution of saving Barton Cove's inn. I hope I don't spoil it too much, but, to provide for herself and her family by really coming to terms with, her experiences of, wrestling and moving through life with this. And it's this hardship and this thing that she actually has a lot of knowledge, a ton of knowledge about now. It's able to become a strength for her, and that's what endears her in the end to, finally find, this resolution and this solution to saving Barton Cove and to support her family. So I wanted to just quickly share a portion of the book. And I feel that this is also a turning point in the relationship between Nora and Bear, and how Bear, reacts to Nora when they have this conversation about the sex tape that she made. So this section comes from the chapter Low Expectations. Quote, "I made a sex tape with my boyfriend in college." Nora took several breaths. "I lost my track scholarship, and this video follows me everywhere I go. I know you work with a lot of young kids, so I understand if you need to process this, or if..." Nora, he closed the distance between them, letting the broom clang to the floor. "I know you had a sexual history before me. I'm an adult. I knew about the video." It took a few moments for what he said to sink in. For a minute, she only blinked at him. "You knew." Nora stepped back. Heat rose in her cheeks. Damn, she didn't expect that. Did you watch it?" Nora searched his eyes for disgust or ridicule, even lust. Instead, he bent his head down and whispered so damned softly in her ear, "I didn't watch it. I figured if there was anything you wanted me to see..." He paused, pulling back to look her in the eye. "You would show me." The look he gave her sent heat all the way down to the soles of her feet. She shook her head. He saw the link and passed it up. It was actually confounding. "You didn't even want to?" Nora asked, now following him around the room as he put away the broom. "I didn't say that." Nora had a million more questions, but they all choked in her throat. "Do you still want me? Why?" Maybe he was pretending to be okay with it because she was standing there. She found herself in the insane position of arguing that the video was actually a big deal. Because if Bear had just shrugged those links off, that would make her the one who had to put too much weight on her past. It would make her the ridiculous one for not just telling him months ago. Am I the drama? No. He had to understand how bad the video was. "I don't think you're taking it seriously." "I am. I'm not pretending. I know this could be tricky for someone working with minors." "Not tricky. A non-starter," Nora corrected. "But this is the future. I happen to know there are ways to delete those. If you're talking about reputation services, I've already tried. They don't delete everything, and they are hella expensive. Well, more than my dad was willing to pay, at least." He didn't say anything at first. He only grabbed the heavy backpacks and slapped them onto the counter. "Next month, we're throwing one of the biggest business events in Old Town. News outlets, other media, everyone is going to be there. We're going to be talking about tribal sovereignty and partnerships with other businesses. I'm telling you this because you're my business partner. And two, there's going to be someone there I think you should meet." He threw a pack of gum into the bag. "Cool. I want to introduce you to some other people too. He must have seen her face fall slightly. Nora, what? I just keep thinking about the video. I think you should watch it. What? I think you're being this cool because you haven't actually seen it. Maybe when you see it, I'll change my mind. Bear's eyebrow rose. I mean, maybe I want you to know this about me. I want you to see it all. And if you still want me after seeing it, then I pass some test. Bear shook his head. Put me to the test in a way that matters, woman. Bear, the video is me. It's who I am. Wholly disagree. Did you even make that video? He bit into an apple, then added a few to the bag. Of all the emotions she expected to feel telling Bear about the video, she was surprised to feel anger. His whole who gives a fuck attitude was infuriating. She'd been the object of disdain and ridicule for nearly 8 years. In the early days, she didn't even leave the house. No, my ex made it, she said through gritted teeth. Then it was being filmed for him. If you want me to know about it, you should tell me about it from your perspective. That's the only one I care about. Bear, you should care about it. People are going to judge you. They're going to speculate about you if you're seen with me. So those were just a couple, this exchange of dialogue from, this early part of the chapter. And I really feel that this kind of communication and understanding that Nora has been under so much anxiety and pressure and judgment from something that ultimately, in the end, she had no control over. Like, yes, she participated in making this video, but everything else was, done by this, predator, by her ex-boyfriend. And just a couple of statistics from the non-consensual pornography among U.S. adults. There's this, in the abstract, it goes, of the 3,044 adult participants, of which were 54% women, 1 in 12 reported at least one instance of non-consensual pornography victimization in their lifetime, and 1 in 20 reported perpetuation of non-consensual pornography. So going towards the results as predicted from the sexual scripts framework that the study was doing, which described norms for men's and women's sexual interactions, women reported higher rates of victimization and lower rates of perpetuation than men. Women victims had lower psychological well-being and higher somatic symptoms than women non-victims, and also higher somatic symptoms than men. And these conclusions, results support non-consensual pornography as a gendered form of sexual abuse that emerging adults, much like Nora, emerging adults are especially susceptible to. In addition, non-consensual pornography victimization has a negative relationship with well-being for women, consistent with narrative accounts and qualitative research. I was really encouraged when I was doing some research about this for, this episode, and while reading this book, I found it encouraging that there are now academic studies that are seriously looking into these situations that are specifically affecting women, and we're finally getting, we already knew that this was happening because, again, they say it's consistent with narrative accounts and qualitative research. We knew this is happening, but I'm just grateful that we're finally getting pen to paper. We're getting studies done to support these claims that women have been saying for years. And I feel that if, you want a book that talks about the emotions that Nora experiences, I definitely suggest you read this book because it gives a very good organic framework to observe, what's going on in Nora's head and to, in a way to find sympathy and to understand where these women are coming from in these situations of, you know, having this content be, you know, used against them or being published against their will. This is why I adore the romance genre. There is always so much more than, you know, this flippant and frothy love story. It's just as Jane Austen did over 200 years ago. Nikki Payne has brought up the topics of economic stability for women, abusers and how they prey on weak members of our society, and environmental challenges. I adore both books of Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen and Sex, Lies, and Sensibility by Nikki Payne. I adore them both for what they are. I adore them for being written by talented women speaking to their contemporary culture of what is observed and experienced. Austen colors the cottagecore peachy story with truth, and Payne gives voice to Abenaki and African American community needs that have not been easy to access or hear for a long time. Both books are powerful when paired with each other together, and the beauty of literature is really revealed, and we can experience the truth of humanity's nature across time and these realities. If you feel as passionate as I do about the genre of literature, I hope you stay for the next episode. Follow and subscribe to keep up to date with uploads of Gently Read. Thank you for joining me for a part of your day, friends, because we are all gently read. If you want to stay connected, subscribe and follow my creative work on @Aurora Fenzl on YouTube. And if I do get more views and more hits on an engagement on this YouTube platform, I will open up more social media channels, and I will endeavor to keep going with this project. But I need to see you. I need to hear you. Go into the comments, say that you like it. If YouTube, you're able to rate the podcast, please rate it. I want to hear from you guys, and tell me what you guys want to hear. This project is in its infancy, so just I hope it will grow. So thank you again for sticking with me and listening, and I hope to see you guys in the next episode.